Title IV-E is the department's largest federally scrutinized funding stream tied directly to placement eligibility and system capacity. Performance on key child welfare metrics declined for half of the indicators tracked between January and November 2025, according to the Commissioner's monthly reports. What specific actions has the department taken to expand licensed placement capacity, number one, and why do shortages persist, including the continued use of hotels and division offices for children in foster care?
Okay, so there's about 4 questions and about 100 answers in what you just asked. So I'm going to try and tease it apart a little bit. So yes, 4E is our largest, federal fund, and that's for children who are in foster care. And so that's where, the state is reimbursed for a portion of the care of children who enter. We also now have the opportunity under 4E to bill through Family First Prevention Services. And so that's something over the last few years that we've really built up and expanded our evidence-based offerings that we can also draw monies down on, regardless of whether a child enters foster care. So it's like we're trying to build up that pool of eligible services so we can bring more money into the state. So that, though, is different than the number of homes that we have available. I think in my opening statement, I talked about the increase in kinship care and wanting, when children have to go into foster care, they need to be removed from their families, that they then are placed with kin, relatives, of someone familiar to them. We can bill 4E the same for a licensed foster parent that we recruit or for a kinship provider. So there's no difference in the amount of monies that we would draw down from the federal government. For kids entering foster care, one of the things that we are looking at and will be working on going forward as part of our federal performance improvement plan is trying to recruit more foster homes specifically for the needs of children entering care. So if you just look number for number, we actually have enough licensed foster homes right now to be able to meet the number of children in foster care. It exceeds it. It's almost double the available slots or beds for the children who actually need that. And that doesn't always take into account kinship care because we don't maintain a pool of kin families, right? So it's like we just maintain a pool of traditional placements. So we actually have more beds available right now than we need for children in foster care. The difference sometimes is that you may have a child with intellectual and developmental needs that, we struggle to find a home that is willing to take a child with those behaviors or needs. It may be that, lots of foster parents sign up wanting to take babies or, wanting to grow their family, and so they're not as likely to accept an adolescent into their home. So those are some of the specialty populations that we are working on, and again, as part of our federal performance improvement plan to try and have a better match for the types of children who enter foster care, that they can have a family home versus having to go into a congregate setting. And so then that's the final kind of, I think, the final part of your question, which is about youth sleeping in offices, which youth do not sleep in offices. They do sleep in, we have some youth that end up being in a hotel overnight with DCP&P staff supervising them around the clock when they're not in school. And that is really a very small number of young people. And it tends to be a profile of young person that's multi-system involved or very high acuity needs. So a young person that maybe is involved with the juvenile justice system, as well as maybe they're in foster care previously, or as a result of their being involved with the juvenile justice system, their family is now saying they can't take them back home, they don't feel safe having them in the home, and so then the judge says to DCP&P, we want you to take custody and find a placement for them. that is not a young person that it's going to be very easy for us to find a foster parent who's willing to take them. And so as a result of that, and maybe if they have behavioral health or mental health needs, and we're looking to try and find a congregate care placement through the children's system of care for them. And we don't have locked facilities on the behavioral health side, the mental health side. And so when there are young people who the court has said, we're not going to place them into detention. Now DCP&P, you need to find a placement for them, and we don't have congregate care beds through the children's system of care that can manage their needs or meet their needs while we're looking for an out-of-state placement or an alternative. We still have custody, or the court has still awarded us custody, and as a result of that, then a young person may need to be in a hotel room with our staff. That's very few and far between. It's not in the best interest of the youth or the staff, right? So it's not something that, not only does it not happen frequently, but it's not something we ever want to happen. And so it's just been probably since maybe July or August is where, this really started to become more of an issue for us in the state. And it is something that other states around the country have been dealing with at even on a larger scale than we are here. And so we do have participated in a lot of meetings and convenings of national partners, bringing states together to try and determine, what can we develop or build to try and support these multi-system involved young people. And in New Jersey, I began a youth mental health roundtable in partnership with Advocates for Children of New Jersey. Back in early December, we had our first meeting, and it's multidisciplinary, specifically for this small population of young people, to see what are short and long-term solutions that we can develop in order to try and provide the supports and services that they need. And that's something that, will continue beyond me.
And is kinship care, just, aside from everything, is that always the first choice, or does it depend case by case?
No, kinship care is, we, as part of legislation, it's legislated that staff, that has to be the first choice. And which means there's a rule out, they actually meet with the family, they're identifying kin that are willing to take the child or children, and then there's background checks and all of the same checks that we do for traditional foster parents. Kinship parents also go through those same processes.
Okay, thanks. How many licensed resource families does the state have, and how does the number compare to the need?
You know what? I'm sure it's in my OLS questions, the number of resource parents that we have, resource homes, so we can dig that up for you.
Okay.
But it actually does, it's great, right now it's greater than the number of children in foster care.
Okay, and is there a way you can break it down by children who are high behavioral needs versus not so?
I don't know that there's a way of, I think we can do something, because we identified that population of young people, like we can identify based on characteristics. So there may be a way of doing that, definitely by age, and whether they're in a traditional home or a kinship home, like we have all of those numbers to break down, whether they're in a congregate facility, like a congregate care setting, which would identify that they have a behavioral health or a mental health need, we could get that to you. So I think there's maybe some ways that we could identify that or try and break that down.
Okay, and have you done any analyses of the number of homes available versus the need?
We have done analysis, again, based on the type of youth that, and what their needs are. So if you just look at straight numbers, we have more foster homes available than children who need the bed. If you look at, adolescents, that's a population that's a little more challenging to find families that are willing to take adolescents. So that's where our recruitment efforts, and as I said, part of our federal performance improvement plan is really focused on being more targeted with our interventions in terms of recruitment. And even looking at parts of the state, you know, like we may need more homes in Cape May or Cumberland County than we do in, you know, someplace else. And so that's the work, I think, going forward will really be about trying to ensure that we're meeting the need not just across the entire state, but more specifically in counties and communities.
Okay, and just a question, more a procedural question about off-sites, you know, hotels and division offices. What specific legal and operational safeguards are in place when youth are put into hotels, you know, that are really not licensed for residential habitation?
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why you know, youth are not sleeping in our offices, because they're not I was going to say licensed, but they're not set up for that kind of a structure. So when a young person is in a hotel, depending upon their age, depending upon you know, their characteristics or the needs that ended up resulting with them needing to be in a hotel, there may also be security that is hired that's there with our staff and the young person.
Okay, and who within the department determines the placement of these youth?
Well, it's either myself along with the Assistant Commissioner for the Division of Child Protection and Permanency. And I would say that a lot of times the decision is, there is no decision. There's no place for the child to be. And so as a result of that, they need a bed. And so they end up, you know, we end up having them sleep in a hotel. Again, with security, and sometimes it's also with the blessing of the judiciary or the judge. So there are times where, you know, the judge will give us custody. We say in court, we don't have a placement for this youth, and they say we'd rather them sleep in a hotel with your staff than in
Right.
detention.
Okay, and last 12 questions. No, I'm only kidding. What's been the total cost of the department in FY 25 and 26 to date for temporarily placing youth in hotels, motels, or division offices? And how much does the department anticipate spending in 27?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, so we were talking about this because it was one of the OLS questions that came to us. And so, you know, we do have information about what we spend on housing or housing needs and what we spend on hotels, but it's not disaggregated by whether that is a parent, a family who needs, you know, temporary shelter, or whether it's a young person who is, you know, needing a placement. So there's not really a way of disaggregating that. I mean, I guess we could go back. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if there's a way you can go back and maybe get us some information and broken down by lodging, transportation, staffing, security, you know, that sort of thing, that would be helpful, and just get it through the chair.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.